Hello friends, it is I Toddness and welcome to a different type of video. I know it's in the Wednesday, but I've been working on a special kind of video. It's another how to. So, yeah, I want to try something new as well. It would be extremely awesome if you would also like to join this discussion by telling me what do you think about the stuff I'll be talking about. So this can be a nice, moist bonding experience between us. Okay, awesome. So, I've been thinking lately, why is Gangplank actually viable again, now of all times? He got reworked a while ago, but people just didn't play him so much. Even in LCS, he hasn't had many games before, but look at the spring of 2018. We have a high win rate, we have 72% win rate on him, and the presence, 90%! In 90% of the games, he's either banned or picked by someone. It's ridiculous. So why did he shine now of all times? Like, I know, you're thinking probably, oh, that's obvious, Kleptomancy, Kleptomancy, but it is mostly that, but I want to go a bit more in depth as to why. So in order to see why Gangplank is so good, now let's talk a bit about what Gangplank used to be. First of all, I'm not gonna be talking about Tankplank, because that's just, in my opinion, he's just plain out bad. There are better tanks, you can pick Malphite, you can pick Maokai, you can pick Sion. They just do a better job at what he does, they have a lot of more crowd control, they tank a bit more, and they're just better. So on Gangplank you used to run Thunderlords if you don't play him tank. Now what that gave you was a bursty ultimate, which could deal, instead of 5 damage at level 6, it could deal 105 damage because of the Thunderlord proc. So you would have more map presence early game. That's why people wouldn't run Gangplank top as well, they would play him mostly mid. It was like a 50-50 thing. But people would play him mid because the top laner could have teleport, he could teleport bottom early, Gangplank would toss the ultimate from the mid lane, so you have more map presence than the jungler ganks, and it's a 5-man team at the bottom lane while you're staying on the mid lane. Now let's see, if you would play him top lane, you have to use the ultimate teleport as well, and then the mid laner stays on the mid lane and you have only 4 people. So that way you would have more map presence as a team. Now the problems with Gangplank used to be that he hits his power spikes too late and the enemy AD carry, being his main counter, already has the items to deal with him. I don't know about you, but my problem as a Gangplank most of the games ends up being the enemy AD carry. Because they have the range to destroy your barrels, which could ruin your combos. They have the range to kill you from a safe distance and they deal a lot of damage, which you can't really deal with. So to sum it up, Gangplank used to have a beast late game, but the AD carry could always counter him if they are smart. You would also run lethality over critical back in season 7 because lethality runes were really nice, but the problem with this is that you give up even more of the early game pressure in lane because the enemy would have, let's say, armor seals, then they would run some sort of damage, marks, speed, ability power or attack damage depending on the champion, and you would just suck early game. You would just suck completely. Your Q would deal less damage because of the armor seals they have. They would deal a lot of damage to you because you're running lethality runes, and you had to sacrifice one of your quintessences and 9 of your glyphs just so you can hit 10% cooldown reduction, and that's the minimum you needed in order to get the maximum cooldown reduction in the game. Also, Bandit used to be a rune instead of built-in the support items right now, and he was okay at the time, but he just wasn't so viable because there were just too many downsides. Also, playing him in the mid lane, he would have a lot of bad matchups that would completely destroy him. I'm talking about most mages, and he would just be set back completely. You would get Triforce between minute 15 and 20 most of the games, if you don't miraculously get really fat. Now, Gangplank at the start of season 8 was just a shit fest. Honestly, that was completely broken. Kleptomancy was introduced. Jesus Christ, this rule was so stupid. I swear, like, one game I had Triforce at minute 8, and I'm not even exaggerating, it was minute 8 and I got the Triforce. I can't really show you footage of that because I didn't record it, but Jesus, it happened, I can promise you. So why is Kleptomancy so good on Gangplank? I feel like this rune was specifically made for him because let's see the other users of Kleptomancy. You would have Misfortune, you would have Ezreal, like these were some of the main ones. So being an AD carry, you would proc Kleptomancy at about the same intervals as Gangplank, be it Ezreal or Misfortune, and the problem comes from these champions not utilizing Kleptomancy as well, because what most people forget is that Kleptomancy actually has the chance to give you the spell bow, orb, I don't know what it's called, but basically it lets you level up a skill. and for most champions that doesn't do much. Like look at Ezreal for example. You max your Q and then it like maxing E second is okay. It gives you, it lowers the cooldown, but it doesn't really benefit you all that much, you know. It doesn't increase your damage. It doesn't really like it only increases your damage if you're going AP Ezreal. It doesn't really, it just decreases the cooldown, which is still good, it's decent. Look at Misfortune. What do you level up after that? You can level up the speed, which is nah, and then you can level up the make it rain, which increases the slow, but still it's not really all that important. Now look at Gangplank. You max the parley first, but your barrels are just as important. Hitting level 13, maxing those two spells is the best thing that can happen to this champion, and being able to have that before level 13 is damn good. Now another thing people tend to not ignore on why Gangplank is so good now is because of the cooldown reduction rules. Like you get kind of the same cooldown, even better at level 10 than before, but you don't need to use your quintessences and your seals. Like your enemy doesn't have this advantage over you of having those, you know what I mean? You would hit the cooldown reduction cap without having to use lethality necessarily. You can hit 45% cooldown reduction right now with just the lucidity boots plus one item from the lethality builds, being Yomu or whatever. Before you used to have to build something else for cooldown reduction as well, because that didn't hit the cap for you. Also, Gangplank scales so quickly now, like not now, but at the start of Season 8, Gangplank would get Triforce really quickly, and you could have Triforce, Tier 2 boots, and Yomu's Ghostblade at minute 15, which is ridiculous. At that point of the game, most people would have one item, so you would be a whole item ahead. That's double what they have. So like I said, the main problem for Gangplank is the enemy AD carry, but they still don't have at that time the necessary things to deal with you. They can't really kill your barrel so quickly, because they are really behind and they don't have all that attack speed yet. They wouldn't have so much damage, so even if you screw up completely your barrels, you can still run away, and you're just so far ahead of the enemy team. That's what makes him so broken right now. Now another minor buff that Gangplank got is that you had to use Bandit, the rune, in order to get the Bandit passive, but now it's built in the support items. Hey, isn't that awesome? So you don't have to spend a point there. Also, Kleptomancy gives you gold even if it doesn't proc any items, so that makes it even better. So now every single time you use your parley on an enemy in lane, you get 25 gold. That's more than a minion. That's more than a whole minion every time you have it up. Jesus Christ! Also now people build critical more than lethality because of the you don't need lethality anymore to reach the cooldown reduction cap, and lethality rules are no longer a thing, so lethality isn't so strong anymore, but you have more consistent damage and you actually have a lot of attack speed as well because of the critical items. Now some of the things that were a bit fixed since the start of Season 8 is that Kleptomancy got a bit of a nerf. You don't get the Triforce in minute 8 anymore, but most of the games you'll still have it between minute 10 and 14. So let's say about minute 12 you still have the Triforce. That's still way ahead of most players in the game. And another thing that happens right now is that people don't realize, at minute 16 to 20 you get the Yomus as well. So that's also the time you hit level 13, that's also the time you get 500 silver serpents for your ultimate upgrade, and that's also the time where team fights start happening. So you get the biggest power spike in the whole game, because you get 3 power spikes actually, at the time the team fights start happening. You can obliterate the enemy team because you're so far ahead, you have the biggest power spike then. The AD carry on the enemy team doesn't have the items yet to deal with you, and you just destroy everything. For the next 5 minutes of the game, maybe, could be actually until the end of the game, if the enemy AD carry doesn't manage to farm up, you are the biggest thing in the game. The game revolves around you, given you're not really far back. In summary, Gangplank used to be good back in Season 7, now he's just better. He gets to that beast late game way quicker than everyone else in the game. Now one of the biggest problems that actually arise from this huge buff that he got, even though it's not direct buff, is that people have kind of adapted to Gangplank, because people now play him a lot, and the enemy AD carries actually grew a bit smarter. They started destroying your barrels, and good players are gonna give you a headache. But still, you can play around that. You have a whole like 5 minutes around the mid game that you can use to get your team really far ahead, take Baron, finish the game, and the enemy AD carry doesn't have the time to scale up to late game. Like, obviously you'll still lose some games because Vayne and Twitch and I don't know, Caitlyn, but it just doesn't happen nearly as much anymore. Anyway, so I hope you guys enjoyed this little video. I know it's something different. I thought that it could be educational, and it would be awesome if you join it as well. Tell me what do you think about the stuff I spoke about. Tell me if you want me to discuss other stuff in the game. I'm thinking of making this an actual series in the channel, even though it's not your like traditional goofy todness that you see in every other video. But I thought that, you know, bonding, you know, me and you, romantic time, you know, yeah. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little video. Make sure to throw a thumbs up at my face if you did. Also subscribe if you would like to see more of my future uploads. Until next time.